Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today I'm gonna show you how you can make free, easy watercolor to and from Christmas cards. Let's begin. I'm gonna start by showing the green one, the one on the left. This one. Now this one I made it from a A4 paper art. This one, standard size watercolor painting. And you're gonna need some watercolor paper, a ruler. You're gonna need some brushes and a black pen and a pencil and a scissor and of course some watercolor. And to activate these watercolors you're also gonna need some water, and I use a paper towel just to dab it up. I'm gonna start by mixing my green color. Now don't worry, you just need yellow, blue, and red, and then you can mix all the colors I use in this video. I start by mixing my green color by mixing yellow and blue together. Then I take my brush and start making leaves. Don't worry about the placement, just try to make it into some kind of pattern. You're gonna cut them up at the end, so if it looks like some weird kind of mess, don't worry about that. Just try to make branches that include all the small little cards, so every little card will have something on them. Then here I'm gonna make my second mixture. I'm gonna take a little bit more blue and a bit more water in my mixture. Now I do use a smaller brush for this. You don't have to do that. You can just use the same brush all over the place. I just prefer to make it use a smaller brush. Now I think this one is a little bit too dark, so I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow, and I actually also take a bit of my green and mix it up with yellow just to get the color I want. And then I'm just gonna start making more leaves on top of the leaves I already did. Here I am making another strong, darker mixture of my green, and I'm just gonna add it on top of it. This is the final layer. In my version, you can of course add as many layers as you want. I just think that this darker color was the final layer to make it the depth I wanted. Now I think the space in between the branches is a little bit too wide, so I'm gonna take my water and I'm gonna mix a very light green color, and I'm gonna take my wet brush, dip it in, then I'm gonna take another brush or a pencil or whatever you have and splash it on. This part is optional. Of course, the splatter one, I just think that it looks quite nice. Now I have made my red mixture, and I'm gonna paint on some berries. Here I am removing some of the paint because I thought that they were a little bit too red. Now I have taken my black pen and I'm just tracing it around the top leaves and the berries. Now you can do this with a normal pen. Just make sure that the entire piece is completely dry and you're not gonna add any more watercolor on top of it if you use a non-waterproof pen. Don't worry about the looks of the leaves. I think it's quite... there's some kind of beauty around the leaves just being leaves. They have all kinds of shapes, so don't worry about how they look. Now I have freed my watercolor paper from the block, and now I am tracing them on, dividing them into the spaces. Now I have at the top of the screen put a ruler where you can see where I am marking my marks on the paper. Now this is centimeters, so I'm sorry to anyone that uses inches, but you can always Google how many inches I am using. This one here is a little bit more tricky because it's not even. So the first point is between the 5 and 5.5. The second one is 10.5, and the third one is between 15.5 and 16. So 5.25 10.50 and 15.75 centimeters. It's very confusing, I am so sorry, but that was the only way I could make so all of the slices are the same. Now I use this fancy sliding cutting machine. You can just use a normal scissor. I just have this and I think it's fun to use and I'm gonna use it. Now that you have cut all of the pieces, the end pieces, the one where all of the complicated numbers were, you're gonna use them as a trademark and place them onto the other pieces on both sides. So you have a mark on each side of the paper that you can cut after. Now I know that I'm not in the frame here, barely, but I am cutting them from the points I put on. It's very badly recorded of me, I'm sorry. Now here are all of the cards. Now you just kind of have to write Merry Christmas on them, or whatever you would like. Now you can twist and turn these cards as you wish, so that you can write Merry Christmas the best way. As you can see here, they are very differently. Some have twisted and turned and so on. Now for the second card in the making is these cute little Christmas balls, Christmas ornaments. And for this you are gonna need some watercolor paper. I use A4 standard size paper. Then you're gonna need a ruler and some brushes. You're gonna need a black pen, pencil, and a scissor. Something a little bit unusual, you're gonna need the top of a lip balm. And of course some watercolor. I'm gonna start by detaching my paper from my watercolor block. And I'm gonna start by cutting them into long strips. I have shown here on top of the screen where all of the marks I am making. And it's a little bit complicated, but it's 5.25, so in between the 5 and 5.5. Then the second point is 10.5, and then the third point is between 15.5 and 16, so 15.75. It's very complicated, but that was how I was able to make sure that all of the pieces were the same size. Now I am gonna line this up in my fancy paper cutting machine. You can just use your scissors for this part. I just like this machine because it's new and exciting. Now that you have all of your strips, I'm gonna show you how to make one of them. You're gonna repeat that on the other four, of course. You're gonna take your lip balm lip. It is optional, to use this lip brown lip. I keep saying lid, I mean lid, not lip. I hope you know what I mean. I'm gonna start by mixing a very strong mixture of red. When I say strong, it's because it has a lot of pigments. Then I'm gonna take my lip brown lid and dabbing them on to make a circular shape. Then I'm gonna take my small brush. I use a size 4 brush here. You can always use what size brush you want. I just found that this size 4 is a very nice size to make these Christmas balls/ornaments. Now you're gonna fill them out, and if you want, you can leave out a little bit of shine at the side of it to give it some kind of dimension. Now you're gonna take your brush and you're gonna, it's a little bit difficult, but I'm sure you can do it. You're gonna freehand these Christmas smaller balls. Now don't make them so low as I'm doing here. I will realize that when I have continued on, because you're gonna write, if you want, you're gonna write Merry Christmas down at the bottom. So don't make the ball so small that you don't have space to write it. So now I have made all of them. You are of course gonna repeat the same progress on all 4. They don't have to be identical. Now I am mixing another red, a stronger red, and I'm gonna put aside all of these. I'm gonna put on another layer. Here, can you see the difference between laying 1 layer and 2 layers? Just so you can see if you want to spend the time laying 2 layers on. And we're gonna try to mix it in. Now these are dry, so we're gonna try our best to do this. You're gonna take your red, you're gonna place them on the opposite side of where you have your shine. Then you're gonna wash your brush, dab it out from the paper, make it wet, but not like wet, just wet. And then you're gonna drag the paint out on the side of it, so it has a darker side, and then around the shine it's more light. It does take some practice, so don't worry about it. So now that I have finished, I'm gonna show you the difference between 2 layers and 1 layer. The top one has 2 layers and the bottom one has 1 layer. So from here you can decide which one you would prefer. Now that I have personally decided to do 2 layers, so that's why I've done it on all of my 4 strips. Now I'm taking my black pen. If you don't have a waterproof pen, you can just use a normal pen, and just make sure that the watercolor is completely dry and you're not gonna add any more water on it. Draw a line to visualize that the ornament, the Christmas ball, is hanging. Then you can decorate them. I like to make a little bow on some of them. This is of course optional. Then I also decided to trace around all of the Christmas balls. And there you go, now this is done. You're gonna repeat this process on all of the 4 strips. Then you're gonna take your ruler, because now we are gonna space them in. On top of the screen, at the top of the screen, I have placed where I'm gonna place my little marks to cut them. I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm gonna trace a little mark on 6 centimeters, 12, 18, and 14. Now I know that these A4 pieces of paper, A4 is just a standard size piece of paper. I know that they are not exactly 30 centimeters, but I'm just gonna place them in between, kinda. It's very a few millimeters difference. Now I'm gonna take my scissor and I'm gonna cut them from the marks I have made on my piece of paper. And out of these you will now have 20 small little cards. You're gonna take your pen and you're gonna start writing Merry Christmas on all of them. It is very relaxing in a way, also a little bit annoying because now you have to write Merry Christmas 20 times, but I got through it, and I think you can also. Now this part is a little bit confusing. I thought it was cool, but it might be weird. You can tell me in the comments if this part is cool or weird. But here are the final results. For the Christmas lights cards, you're gonna need some watercolor paper, you're gonna need a ruler, you're gonna need a scissor, some brushes, a black pen and a pencil, and of course some watercolor. That also includes some water and a piece of kitchen towel. Now I have started by mixing my yellow paint, very rich kind of paint. And when I say rich, it's because there's a lot of pigments in it, there's a lot of color, so it shows easily on the paper. You're gonna start by making little dots around the paper. Kinda make them into like, imagine like some kind of pattern without actually making the pattern. Then you're gonna pick another color. I'm gonna pick red. You can choose whatever colors you want on this part, but I use yellow, red, blue, and green. And I'm gonna just add around the pattern where I have made my yellow light bulbs. Now I am going in with my third color. This is very pretty blue. Now you can place these wherever you want, but I prefer there's some kind of like slight pattern to it, so it's a little bit easier when you're gonna draw them out or draw the lines between them. Now I am going in with my third color. No, my fourth color. I'm going in with my fourth color here. This very pretty green, and I'm just gonna add them wherever I feel like they fit. See, now comes the fun part. Now you're gonna connect them. Now you're gonna take your black pen and you're just gonna draw a line in between them and kinda make them look like it's string lights. So add some little curls, some random hooply hoops and hoo-ha and whatever you want. This for me was the part where I felt like that this was starting to come together and started looking like what I wanted it to look like. Now I draw around the light bulbs as well to give them the light bulb feeling, and a little black square at the bottom where the light bulbs is connected to the line. So now you can take your ruler. That box, the gray box, that is a eraser, to anyone wondering. Now I use my ruler to detach my paper. Well, my watercolor paper is glued together, so I use my ruler to detach them. I don't think it's the best way, but it works, so I'm not complaining. Now I have taken my ruler, placing them up here on the top of the screen. I have shown where I am making the dots. shown you where I mark these markings. Now this is a little bit more complicated because each piece of paper is going to be 5 centimeters and 25 millimeters. Now I take this very fancy sliding machine. I think it's so fun. It's quite new for me, so I take every opportunity I have to use this machine. You can of course just use your normal scissor. Now we are gonna create this, make them into small little cards. So again, on top of the screen I have shown you where I make all of the marks. You're gonna use these marks on both sides of the paper, so you can use them as kind of a line to cut them. Now I don't make a direct line, but if you prefer to do that, you can make a direct line, so maybe children also can cut them out. Now we're just gonna take our scissors and cut them where the marks are. Now is the tedious part where you're gonna write Merry Christmas on all of the cards. And you can twist and turn them however you want to make sure that there's space to write Merry Christmas on there. Now if you feel like some of the cards don't have enough light bulbs, then you can just take your paint and you can make some sneaky little light bulbs to show them. Just make sure that you tell the people that is going to lay them as a puzzle that there is probably a part that doesn't really fit. But here are the final result. Thank you very much for following my little tutorial on how to create these Christmas cards. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Follow me for more watercolor links.